One's ready. One's ready. Go!
So you guys are going into Special Warfare Assessment Selection. It is an attributes-based selection model. What does that mean?
Guys, are we running right now to get fitter with practicing running? Practicing.
Right? I can't freaking...
So there's a holistic picture that we're looking for. The instructors are giving you input, and we're expecting an output. And everything is for a reason. If you guys haven't heard my spiel yet, everything that we do, every single exercise, has a connection to the job that you're trying to do. We don't want people at INDOC, Special Warfare Assessment Selection, whatever they're gonna call the new course when it inevitably changes somewhere down the road. I don't care what they call it. What I need is you to show me the raw materials for the things that I wanna build you into. Just like everything else, it's a crawl, walk, run.
I can run a key, sir, just like this.
All the way to ATC, you never quit.
All the way to ACC, you never quit.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. Before we hop into this next episode where Trent and I are talking about the new BMT, I guess it'd be 3.0? Or is it 2.0?
Just call it BMT progress. You know what I mean?
Progress check.
Yeah.
We'd love for you guys to head over to operatortrainingsummit.com and register for one of our upcoming events. We've released the calendar for all of 2026, so you have an idea and you can plan accordingly. But the next event's coming up at the very beginning of March, and it's going to be at the University of Alabama. And we're going to be using their facilities. Some of the football players are going to be working out with us. Like, this is going to be pretty epic, and you don't want to miss it. So you can register at operatortrainingsummit.com.
Yeah. Some of the ROTC folks are going to be there. So the number of times that you're going to hear me say "cadidiot" is going to be a lot. So just show up for that. It's going to be
It's not
awesome.
going to be zero. The number of
Not
times
zero.
is not going to be zero.
No.
And then also, if you guys are looking for some hydration solutions, check out drinkhoist.com. Use the promo code One's Ready, or you can find it at commissaries, gas stations, grocery stores, and that kind of stuff. They've got ready to drink, and then they have packets that are great for traveling on the go, working out, and all that kind of good stuff. So we love those guys. They've been with us since the beginning.
I was going to say, they're like day one. Y'all, if you like the podcast, if you like what we're doing, Hoist is a big part of making this happen every single week. I think last week we had like 3 days in a row where we were just dropping content. Can't do it without people like Hoist supporting us. So please go out there and support them. It helps us a lot. And their product, of course, is amazing.
It's absolutely. All right. Enjoy the next episode. See you.
Later.
Now we did a members only yesterday. We can't do it today.
Yeah. We show up all spicy and then we're like, well, but we got to do like a real podcast that's like somewhat informative, I suppose.
So what are we talking about today then? Welcome back, everybody, by the way. You're in the team room, One's Ready podcast.
Well, you see that?
Yep, I can.
All right. So you all may have seen this. Coming soon to Air Force basic training, mock airfields, complete with F-16 and C-130s. Holy crap. Jared, did you have any idea this was happening?
Nope, never heard of it.
So I figure we can go through this article real quick because this is a pretty decent article. I think they actually talked to General Davidson and even Major Sweeney down there at 2nd Air Force about what it is and what it isn't. And then we can kind of talk about some behind the scenes stuff that we're privy to. Nothing crazy, but just kind of maybe some clarifying data, if you will.
Sounds good. So overarching, what is this?
So General Davidson, the 2nd Air Force commander, wanted to go from the drill pad to the airfield, right? And when he says that, what he means is, I want to make the Air Force feel like the Air Force when they're in BMT and not just marching a little bit of PT and some attention to detail, right? He wants to connect everybody to the mission. You know, the thing that more Air Force people have in common than anything else is we all work around airfields, right? Even if you're not on the airfield on a base, most bases, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong because you're smarter than I am. Most bases have a place for a bird to take off and land, right?
Most. We have some satellite locations and stuff like that don't, but they are also supporting, the airfield or whatever base near them. So
Right. But like the vast majority of folks in the Air Force are going to live around these things and work to support these things. Mission generation is kind of what we all do as enlisted folks. Um, and I think connecting people to that is a good thing. And to be fair, I'm going to need you to push back on me because I'm a little too close to this problem. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Let's do
All
it.
right.
I'll
So
push back all day long.
let's just knock this out real quick. By October, BMT officials at Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland, Texas, hope to complete the first airbus training range, outfitted with a mock concrete runway, 2 C-130 Hercules aircraft, and an F-16 Fighting Falcon aircraft. They told Air and Space Forces magazine. Trainees will practice basic airfield support skills such as arming and refueling aircraft, repairing bomb-damaged runways, and loading casualties into a cargo aircraft for evacuation. You're welcome. Yeah.
It was my idea.
It was not my idea. But like I think that's a really good paragraph, actually. That kind of just like, if you can use your imagination a little bit, that is what it is. So in basic training, you will have some exposure and some context to what it is that you're doing. Now, I do want to start with this because this is always one of those things that people get hung up on in the beginning when you start talking about these things. And being in the Air Force, we're all very technically driven and AFSC driven, and that's one of the things we're trying to get away from in BMT is, what does an airman actually do? But when we talk about arming the aircraft, fueling the aircraft, any of that other stuff, we're not talking about technical accuracy. What we're trying to get after more than anything is the mindset for these folks coming out of BMT, that if something needs to be done, and they understand what the main mission is, right, is generating sorties and all that other stuff. And if something needs to be done in that vein, they need to go figure it out and they need to go help. It doesn't matter if you're finance or personnel or weather or any of that other stuff. Figuring out how to get the job done to, fly, fight, and win and kill the enemy. That's what we're really going for. Does that track?
It does track, and I think it aligns with, I think it was CQ Brown's first initiative with multi-capable airmen, right? Then it was General Alvin that came in and said, no, we're going to call them mission ready airmen. And it's the whole point, and there's, believe me, there are some, since you told me to push back, there are some pros and cons to the thought that everybody could have the aptitude, the time to carry a hose to plug into a B2 to refuel it, or help the munitions folks rearm aircraft, for the fuel folks for POL to go, or even, hey, let me go with Tomahawk AMU and help freaking turn some wrenches on this F-16 because they need the hands. Like, there is a requirement for that. I can see a world that happens, but I think you also have to go into it with a little bit of skepticism and go like, well, maybe that dude isn't the guy to have come turn wrenches on this F-16,
Yeah. And I don't think you'd ever be turning wrenches necessarily if you're not a guy, like it's so complicated. Obviously I went out to, Shepherd and hung out with the maintenance guys out there. And, some of the MTIs out here are maintenance folks, and they are our favorite people in the Air Force. And it's a complicated thing. They break it down and make it sound easy. That there's things I'm good at. That is not one of those things. Like when they talk about like, oh, you just follow these lines and all these things. And there's like a million things on this jet that if you do it wrong, it'll kill you or rip your fingers off. And I'm like, this job is way more dangerous than my job ever was, guys. How come we don't give you the credit you deserve? But when we talk about even our pipeline, one of my favorite things to talk about is like the willingness to do something. If you get out there, if everything's going wrong, like say if you're in like one of these forward deployed locations and we're having like a, whatever we're calling the fighting with people with similar technology as us now, or a high casualty affair. It's like, man, I just need you to throw these chocks onto those tires. Yeah. I need you to do something. I need to do the simple task because I just need more bodies so that people can make this happen. I think the willingness to put yourself out there and to do and to follow directions is really what we're trying to get after, and not that like, because you're not going to be loading munitions the way that they're actually loaded. You know what I mean? A, like, it's expensive, I think. And B, I think people have a hard time understanding the scale of BMT, right? And the Air Force isn't even that big, but there are, I don't know, like it's like 800 something show up every day, or 8,000, or it's like 42,000 people a year go through this thing, something like that. It's an insane number of people.
BMT?
Yeah, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
like when you come from like our world, especially, it's funny because you show up and you're like, why don't you guys just do this to solve this problem? And when you sit down at BMT and you talk to people for long enough time, and you understand the scale of it and how fast things break and how fast things break down, um, it's a different animal. So you have to take into consideration those types of things. It's not, I mean, the security forces equipment that they train on is not going to break down near as fast as the BMT stuff. So, yeah, another reason why, like, the technical accuracy, you're just not going to get it.
No, and I think, to your point, and maybe I used a bad example, but if we could teach a handful of people that are going to be at remote locations how to catch an aircraft when they land and marshal it into a parking position and chalk it, that right there is I don't want, it's not asking a lot, but that helps. As minor and as a minute thing that possibly is, that's one or two less maintainers that you're going to have at these remote locations so that we can spread them out other locations.
Yeah.
Just to catch an aircraft, marshal it in where it actually needs to go, and marshaling it in correctly to where you don't run out of space and go, oh crap, I didn't plan this out correctly.
Yeah, and it's just helping the pilot out, right? And never forget that all these aircraft have pilots in them, or the vast majority of them, right? So like if I'm stuck on an airfield and all my air traffic controllers are dead, and some pilot comes up on comms and is like, "Hey man, can I land there?" Like I can give them the weather report. Obviously, I can look at the runway and be like, "Hey, it's clear of obstacles. Land at your own risk." And it's on the pilot. You know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah.
So that doesn't make me an air traffic controller, but that does make me willing to do a little bit of work and to use common sense. And then the pilot lands where he doesn't.
Yeah. And then to back up your numbers there, anywhere between 650 and 750 people go through basic training per week. And then that's starting or graduating. And then that's roughly 35,000 a year.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, let's move on. All right. So the one that they talked about right there was the one that's going to be on Main side, on Lackland. The second one out at the Pacer Forge site, more expeditionary air base training range. And it's funny when you talk about the words people use changing them a bunch of times. Man, airbase training range is the latest iteration of words that we have used to describe this thing. So it's exciting. I don't have feelings about it. Anyway, the more expeditionary airbase training range that features dirt airstrips and possibly additional aircraft is scheduled to be completed by the end of the year. It will be designed to add a new level of realism for airmen going through Pacer Forge, the final field exercise introduced in 2022 that simulates operations at makeshift air bases that trainees might experience conducting agile combat employment operations. So there you go. So you're going to have like your the way to look at this is that there's going to be the main side stuff where it's not going to be like an actual airfield, and depending on how they employ it on the government side, it's more like practicing these tasks, right? Like getting exposure to these, just like everything else. And we're actually trying to build BMT up to the Pacer Forge being the thing, like the exercise where you put all of these skill sets together, and all the stuff that you've learned as a team, and you're going to be operating within the same team all the way through BMT to the test when you get to Pacer Forge. And it's more about how y'all perform and communicate and all this other stuff than it is about like doing well, like loading the patients or how well you connect the refueler to the bird type stuff.
And the whole point is this is basic military training. You're not going to be an expert in any of this. There's expectations for you to perform at a basic level, not to be the Rob Gutierrez out there freaking saving people or Ivan Ruiz, like it's not going to be that person. This is at a basic level. This is the Pacer Forge being the capstone event. And
yeah. So, and it's moving towards like a competency-based training model, right? And it's really confusing for people that don't understand that, but it's like the thing that is the most important to us is that you work as a team, you're willing to do work, and you're a military professional, all these other things. You're, what is it? Air-minded warrior is kind of like what we're saying an airman should be. So we care more about like how you do it than whether or not it actually gets done. But by the time you get to Pacer Forge, you should be able to knock out the vast majority of these things for most of the flights, and feel good afterwards. It's going to be hard, right? And that's another thing that we're looking for. If you went out to Pacer Forge before, you can talk to Vic about this, right? The first time that they sent the special warfare guys out there to look at Pacer Forge, there's so much sitting around. The tactics are like beyond. Like there were a lot of issues, right? And the folks out there right now they're like, man, we just need to. People need to be busier at Pacer Forge. We need to give them a lot more stuff to do, and this is one of those tools. The airfield concept out there is a tool to put them in context and to keep them busy and to do difficult things while they're out there, while they're not sleeping well, while they're not going back to their beds in the dorms. So there's going to be a lot of goodness out there. All right.
I'm laughing at the sitting around. There's way too much sitting around.
That's a quote. That's not even a Trent-ism. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't like to sit around. And if you look at all the military type schools where there's a lot of sitting around, a couple that there weren't was we didn't have a lot of downtime at NDOC. We didn't have a lot of time at Combat Control School. Definitely not at Combat Dive School. A little bit at SEER. A whole lot, an obscene amount at Airborne School.
Oh my gosh.
Army's Airborne School should be 5 days long, Monday through Friday, and be done. It does not need to be 3 weeks long.
Crammed 5 days of training into 3 weeks. It's pretty difficult.
It's impressive.
So, yeah. But I mean, that's one of the things that we're trying to get after. I think after the whole, the big sexual assault scandal at BMT and then COVID, it just keeps getting watered down. The good news is if you talk to the MTIs first, they want to get after it, right? Like they signed up or they got non-balled to do something, but they're all professionals and they want to do it. Second thing is, as I've talked to a bunch of the folks that are recent BMT graduates, and I've talked about this before, we are not meeting their expectations in basic military training. Everyone wants to talk about the young generation and all the issues that they have. But when you go talk to these folks when they first show up at their tech schools and you're like, how was BMT? And they're like, it's kind of stressful like the first 2 weeks, but after I normalized and after like the TI wasn't screaming in my face like constantly, because they kind of ease back, there's a whole bunch of just sitting around. And they're like, I kept waiting to join the military. Like, I know it's the Air Force, but like, where's the military at, y'all?
I've heard that feedback as well. And what is that? I know we're deviating a little bit from this. So what is that? Why did we kind of make basic training a little bit easier or ease up on them? And yet still complain, right? I know that typically we don't, but others will complain about this next generation. And you're like, well, they're a product of our generation, just like we're a product of the generation 2 and 3 before us. So, all those guys that complained about us and then we're complaining about them, but it's our fault. We watered it down.
Yeah. Well, after like, the big brouhaha at BMT, it was like, well, we need to be listening to, how do we not let this happen again? It's like, well, we need to listen to the trainees. And what happens when you start flipping the power dynamic too much, right? That pendulum swung where the TIs had all the power. They were NCOs. They were professionals. Obviously, there was a fair number of them doing really not great things for a period of time. That kind of hosed everybody. But when the pendulum swings and you're like, okay, well, I need to know if something's happening. So I got to start asking the trainees. I mean, as well as I do. Even if you put me in a classroom right now and you start asking me what's wrong, I'll tell you. I'll come up with something that's wrong. I'll complain about something. I'm good at complaining. You know what I mean? So that's what they did. They complained about everything. And they got real sensitive about, whether or not the trainees were safe, feeling safe and had the environment to train. And, this isn't the Army. This isn't the Marine Corps. And we're lucky to still have an organization after what we did or what a few people did with the trainees before. And so it just keeps going, right? Like you listen to trainees, it's like, well, my MTI cussed at me. Like, okay, no, like my MTI brushed up against, like got close to me, was yelling at me, and their hat hit my head. Like, okay, zero physical contact. And it's like my MTI singled me out. These are all things that they took away, right? Like, okay, you can no longer single out a single trainee and make them do push-ups or yell at them or call out their name or whatever. You just got to kind of yell at all of them together. And so we've realized that the product of that is not what we're looking for. So we're trying to pull it all back. It's kind of like what happened in our pipeline too for a little bit. Remember that? QR codes everywhere. Let the trainees run the asylum. Sergeant Peaches was mean to me.
Probably.
All right, guys. All right. So this next paragraph that I'm going to read is kind of like a good summation. Is this is about providing that basic context of what it takes to sustain air power. We call it DOGS: defend, operate, generate, and sustain air power. General Davidson said that is the basic concept of how airmen fight from an airfield. In BMT 2.0, we started with going to smaller teams, trying to do more practical events, less classroom work. So there's a lot less classroom stuff. Those practical events will only increase with 3.0, but some of those events you can't do until you actually get the training range. You can't actually put bombs on an airplane unless you have an airplane. So it's trying to provide the tools for them to do the training that's going to connect them to the mission.
Yeah. Less classroom time is better. We've already proven that people learn better when they actually have tactile, hands-on doing things.
Yeah.
So why not let them do it?
Well, and it's not everybody, right? Like, not everybody's like the tactile learner, but this way, when we talk through a lot of this stuff as we're building out like the training for all these things, because there's a lot of things that you have to do. Like, you have to create the airfield, you got to get the birds on it, and you have to write all the scenarios, and you have to create the lesson plans and all this other stuff. So as we go through this process, it's like, I want you to be cognitively challenged, I want you to be physically challenged, and I want to put stuff in there along the way. And this is just Trent talking, but if I had it my way, I would put stuff in there along the way that kind of like, if I'm an individually driven person, right? When you talk about like the obstacle course when we went through, being the narcissist that I am and not a very good team player, the O course was my favorite day at BMT, right? And I'm bringing this up because we were talking about the other day, because I was able to compete with everybody else. I came in first in my flight across the finish line. And so I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of teamwork stuff in there. But on that day, I just got to like compete as an individual, and it felt really good to be able to put it all out there.
Yeah.
So you want your like times when the folks that are not necessarily as physically driven or tactile, time for them to shine, so that their teammates can see that there's value in that, right? Like those nerds. And then you want the time for everybody else to shine, and you want them to kind of come together as a team. And you know this probably better than almost anybody else. It's like a team kind of needs a lot of different types of people to get after a broad mission set.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody hates admin. Not everybody, but when you find somebody who's good at it or that doesn't mind it, it's kind of beneficial, right? I've got that actually right now. I've got a space. I forget what her actual expertise is, but she's Space Force, and she's really good at admin and actually enjoys it. And it's like, well, cool, because I'm going to put you in that role right now.
You love creating order out of this chaos that I create? You go ahead. Yeah, you're going to love this. All right, this next paragraph. Okay, so I got to warn y'all. I was on the Facebooks, and I was on the Airmen NCO Senior NCO page, and I actually appreciate that they shared this article. That's one of the things that they're really good about, right? Like, if they see something, they just put it out there. And they don't even add context, and you let people go crazy in the comments. But one of the comments was like, too much money, and one of these idiots was like, this is way too expensive for BMT. BMT is what every enlisted person goes through that joins the Air Force. And I know that $30 million, which is what they're talking about in this next part, sounds like a lot of money, but it is almost no money when you're talking about something that's going to affect the entire enlisted force. And considering that about half the enlisted force at any given time is on their first enlistment, right? Something like that, or like within their first 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you want something that creates the biggest impact that you can possibly create in the Air Force between your BMT and your tech trainings, I think a little bit of investment. And when you start talking about these numbers, I don't think it's enough, but it's not that much. So I'll just read it. A large portion of the $30 million investment spread between the fiscal 2025 and 2026 defense budgets will go toward building a training range that resembles a permanent airbase that's a little larger than a football field on Lackland, located near the drill pads where BMT is conducted, Davidson said. I think he's talking about the permanent thing. So the first thing that's going to be built with the F-16 and the C-130s on main side is kind of called like a pop-up. It's kind of like a temporary thing. Excuse me, that can be built quickly because General Davidson wants this stuff online like right now. And then there's the Milcon project that will kind of make it a lot more permanent, talking about real property and that kind of stuff, running lines and making sure it has permanent power, stuff like that.
Yeah, all that stuff takes lots and lots of times, and I'm sure that General Davidson wants to see this during his tenure at 2nd Air Force, so I'm not surprised by that at all. And to your point about $30 million, I mean, that's just one daycare in Minnesota, so like whatever.
You can't just walk into the daycares and see the children. It's not how. Did you ever heard of security? It's like no one's ever seen a child walk into this building.
I couldn't help myself. I had to.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I'm looking through the rest of this and it's like, we're going to have F-16, a couple C-130s. So this is General Davidson. And I think Major Sweeney out of 2nd Air Force, who's heavily involved in this as well. They talked to them. They're talking about when the F-16 is going to arrive, getting work, a lot of technical stuff. All right. So here's the plan is to have 16 containerized training stations on the permanent mock airbase that train 8 key tasks: arming fighter aircraft, refueling, casualty transfer and evacuation, cargo loading, post-attack and repair, aircraft marshaling, aircraft familiarization, and airbase entry control. So Jared, what of those things should we not train the trainees on?
I need to pick one.
General Davidson, I hope you're paying attention because Peaches is about to tell you which one you should drop.
Which one do we need to drop? I'd say air-based entry control.
There it is. Sorry, security forces, you're not going to get any help.
I mean, people already do entry control around their own buildings, right? If you see somebody in there that is a stranger danger, then you kind of say, "Hey, is there something I can help you with?" If they're like, "Nah, I'm just hanging around," then it's like, "Well, not anymore. You're not," that kind of thing. So we kind of already do that. So I think that's probably a low-hanging fruit that you could probably shake hand.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it though. I just wanted to see what you would come up with. But people are going to push back a lot on this, and I keep repeating this because it's important. This is not going to be technically accurate, right? The marshaling is going to be more simulated. The airbase entry control is not going to look the way it would for security forces to actually run it professionally. Your post-attack and repair, like there's not actually going to be holes in the airfield, but hopefully we have some mats out there that I have to drag around and put together. So when we start talking about some of this stuff, think about the physicality of it. Just grabbing these fake munitions and carrying them over to the bird and trying to get them hoisted up to attach them to the wing of the F-16. And obviously your casualty transfer and evacuation stuff. So trying to keep people busy, get them in the context of that, trying to get them used to like kind of what an airfield is and the role of the enlisted folks on that airfield. And I think it's going to be pretty rad.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to go and watch this once they have this thing up and running, just see how it works.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm sure we could make that happen. So Sweeney says something here that's important, and I know I'm way too invested in this, and I should shut up at some point. But he talks about the stations, and he says the point is that we will evaluate them on those soft skills like teamwork, interpersonal communications, delegation, and feedback and analysis, and not the technical aspects of these. So you're going to see a lot of comments on Facebook and all that other stuff like, why would I train a nonner on how to load, weapons on an F-16? Like, why would finance ever need to be Like, I've been in the Air Force for this many years, and you know, I've never had to do any of this stuff. All that antiquated thinking that pops up, which is something that we're trying to fix, right? Like the whole, you know, nobody in the Air Force is like, I'm an airman, the way that a Marine would be like, I'm a Marine.
That's
And so we're
true.
trying to connect for folks to the force first, before they go off to their tech schools, because, you know, we're all like, what do you do? We're not like, I'm an airman. Yeah, Peach is like, I'm a combat controller, because we don't have that identity necessarily.
Yeah, and that's actually direct feedback that the Air Force is trying to get after for a couple of years now is you know, connecting airmen to the mission and that kind of stuff, because some of the feedback from active duty, at least on the junior side of the house, was, yeah, I don't like, even on the maintainer side, like, hey, yeah, okay, I don't know why I'm turning wrenches in the extreme heat or at you know, Minot Air Force Base, freezing my cojones off, like, you know, day in and day out. Like, why I don't see the end result. Like, okay, I fixed the jet and it freaking launches. And so they are unable to, not unable, but they just, at that time, they don't see what they're doing. All their hard work is doing. And I think something like this will help instill that early on, from essentially from their first 8 weeks in the Air Force, and hopefully that kind of carries it on, and they can understand the bigger picture, the bigger mission going forward.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully it's harder too. You know, like I've talked about this with people. You know, I talk about how my old man didn't show up to my base training graduation, right? Because he was like, I don't think he was motivated to. Because before I left, he was like, it's Air Force BMT. It's not hard. It wasn't hard in the 70s. It wasn't hard in 2003 when I went through. It's still not hard. Not hard enough, right? And I was like, do you think if my dad was a Marine and I joined the Marine Corps, do you think he wouldn't have showed up to my BMT graduation?
Oh, he would have been there, and he would have been dressed as well.
Right. Right. Because it's hard. Like, he understands what it is. We just made a Marine. Like, that's
Yeah.
like, it's a totally different thing. But that's based on, like, when you know, you graduate from Air Force BMT and your family's there, it sucks to be away from your family. I'm not saying it's not stressful in BMT and all that other jazz, but like, what are the hard stories that you're going to tell your family? What's the transformation that's taken place? Are you fully transformed, or do we associate that with our tech schools and other stuff because that's where the transformation takes place for people?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, and maybe you know it because you've been in this. I'm not going to have time to look it up. The Marines have during their basic training, they have whatever. I don't even know if it's called the Crucible or they have a Crucible event. Is it called the Crucible? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Which is like the almost the rite of passage for Marines when they go through. It's like, and you could equate it to how everybody in special operations, right, that has actually done an assessment and selection. Sure, guys don't really talk about their deployment with each other. You know, oh yeah, I did this, whatever. You know, or they bullshit in the team room about it. But what we all do is we all revert back to and start talking about old pipeline stories, because most of them are funny. Some of them are like, boy, that sucked. But and essentially that's what the Marines give back to the young Marines by sending them through base training through the Crucible. And this could be, or has the potential to be, Pacer Forge to be the Crucible for the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're listening and at some point you go to BMT sometime next year and you go out to Pacer Forge and you don't get a lot of sleep and you feel like there's no time to really settle down, you know, and you're just busy the whole time and you're dirty and you're gross and you can't wait to get out of there and you fall asleep on the bus ride back to Mainside because you're completely exhausted, that's because Trent got what he wanted. Okay. And you're welcome. That is the goal. The goal is for you to be like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that. The goal is to get you to a point where your brain says, I don't know if we can do this, dog. You're like, you know what I mean? Like, that's really because that's what a selection course is, right? Like, it's just like, I got to put you in a place where you're like, what am I doing, man? What am I doing? Where you have to start to have some honest conversations with yourself. And we're not trying to run a selection course out at a BMT, right? But man, there's going to be a point where you're just like, I don't I don't want to do this. I don't want to wake up. How much sleep did I get last night? Like there's going to come a point where you're going to have to take the voices in your head and put them to the side and be like, there's a mission, got to get done. Let's just get it done. Let's just go.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
So during this, and this is education for me, is there going to be, and whether it's during Pacer Forge or during the whatever the crucible type event is in Air Force BMT, is there going to be any kind of sleep or food deprivation or anything like that?
So they have a waiver for how many hours of sleep you have to get out of Pacer Forge, right? And we are filling the day with things to do, right? So like you don't have to like build in like necessarily sleep deprivation, but like you're still going to have to be out there worrying about your Op 4 attacking your base at night. People still going to have to like run watch, and that's after some contractors came in there and helped create a million things for you to do during the day to keep you busy that are difficult things to do in the context of being an airman, right? So yeah, like they're not going to get a ton of sleep. Like you're going to be eating MREs, you're not going to have a ton of time to eat, in between events. You're just going to have to figure it out. It's not going to be like abusive in any type of way. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And this is the goal, right? I want it to be fun and miserable at the same time so that when your parents show up at your graduation, they're like, how was it? You're like, yo, bro.
Let me tell you about this.
Yeah. I can't believe that I made it to the end of that. Like, yeah.
You're not trying to program a selection for sure.
No.
But you will get the required amount of sleep. It just may not be all at once, right? You will get the correct caloric intake because MREs have a lot of calories and a lot of carbs in it. So you're going to get it. Now, doesn't mean that you won't feel that emptiness inside your belly where you're like, well, I'm kind of hungry. Well, you're getting enough calories and carbs, so
yeah, you're burning them.
Yeah.
So those MREs are dense, like Aaron.
Dude, enjoy those post BMT number 2s. How about that?
They're so great. That's so great. I think it's just the stress though, like the new environment and all that other stuff. But this is going to be a stair-step approach, right? So like in 2.0, we have these like physical teamwork events that are already being run at BMT. So, depending on the week, you're going to have a lot of stuff to do, but you're going to get together as a team. There's going to be this scenario that you have to run. There's going to be cognitive components and physical components of everything that you have to do to reinforce some of the lessons that you've been taught, whether it's your weapons and all this other stuff, teamwork, communication, how to do a perimeter sweep, and already putting stuff in context with the Air Force, right? And it's, again, not technically accurate, right? Because there's like a radar little scenario that's in there that's not really going to teach anybody how to use a radar or what to do, but like start understanding size, distance, how it kind of works, like the very basics of radar, with a physical component and a teamwork component and all that other stuff. And so we're slowly moving in that direction, a whole lot less classroom stuff, maybe a little less focus on like the drill and ceremony. Now, here's one of the things when we first started this project is I was like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I never want to sit here and be like, BMT was awful before, General Davidson said change it, because there's a lot of really good things there. Like the Air Force is really good at attention to detail. The professionalism that the MTIs instill within the trainees is pretty good. The dorms were always perfect. So some of those good things that are maybe just not as focused on as they were before, or are maybe done a little more quickly, so we can get to some of that other stuff. But there was a lot of white space and repetitive classroom events that you can get rid of and throw these other physical Air Force minded, air minded warrior events in there to instill that teamwork and all that other stuff that you want out of your trainees before they ship off to their tech training.
Yeah. I think in March, we're going to end up having a BMT MTI on. We've had him on before. So I won't mention his name right now just in case it doesn't happen, or maybe it's somebody else, but I was going to have him on like in January, and I guess it still is January. And he was like, hey man, BMT's changing right now. Like let's shoot for March. That way I can I can run a flight through there and give you some feedback and tell you what we're actually doing. Because I mean, the Airman NCO Facebook page was all, hey, they're no longer doing hospital corners and shit's going freaking. There's letting the patients run the place.
So the pendulum swings, and it's hard to stop. All right, and we're trying to find the balance, or BMT is trying to find the balance. When I say we, I'm very invested in this, obviously, and anything that I get involved with, it's very like a we thing and all that. So like, just yeah, if my name's attached to it, I take it pretty seriously, except for one's ready, obviously.
Obvious.
Yeah. But it's come already, right? Like, so some corrections have already been made when it comes to some of that stuff. Like I said, like some of the baby did get thrown out with the bathwater on the initial push, but like you got to break the concrete into, break it down to dust before you build something new. And that's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah. And that kind of, so I don't know if you were going to look at some of the comments, but this one dude left a comment.
Yes.
And it's all over the place, right? There are people that are like, hey, this is a great idea. And then
because
others
it is,
or it's terrible, So this person, this is a quote. This seems like a waste of time and resources to me. Saying that in the Air Force we're doing something we've never done doesn't necessarily make it a good idea. Very few airmen that experience loading bombs on an F-16 will actually ever do that, or loading casualties. Cargo refueling on an aircraft or runway repair is not something 95% of the Air Force will ever do in their careers. Seems more like something they should be doing at their follow-on tech school, where the experience and safety will be relevant to their careers. Oh, wait. They do that in tech school. I think this would be more useful as a training session for new arrivals at a PCS base around equipment they'd actually be exposed to. So I'll open that up for you first.
Let's just hit the resources real quick. All right. You're like, this is a waste of time and resources to get everybody this stuff at BMT, but I want to do this at every single tech school out there. Hey, moron. I don't know if you understand how resources work, but putting it all in one place and getting everybody the same experience is a lot less expensive and a lot less manpower than doing it at every single tech school out there or at every single base when you PCS out there. Like, tell me you've never tried to build anything without telling me that you've never tried to build it. It's insane. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Also, we train on all kinds of stuff that we never actually have to do. You know what I mean? So should we stop doing CBurn? Like, because when was the last time one of our airmen actually got gassed overseas?
I would say yes. We don't need to do CBurn like that.
Okay, that's a bad example. Should people stop shooting? Should we stop marching? Like, what do we have BMT for then? If we never have to do these things again, or you can be like, what type of people are we trying to create? And if we're creating a context, we're trying to create airmen that understand what being an airman means. That's what we're trying to do. I got really, really upset about that. The resources thing, though, because this is supposed to. You've heard of Bracer Forge?
Right. I think I have, but I don't remember what it's in regards to. Isn't it tech school like Crucible?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So well, it's not a Crucible. So I wouldn't think of it as a single event, as just a continuation of like maintaining that connection to the Air Force through events while you're in tech school, right?
Okay.
And I'll tell you, solving the problem at BMT. This is why I'm so crazy about it, right? Solving the problem of BMT in a single location. The scale of BMT is insanity, and it's really, really difficult to make these things happen and to build things and create scenarios that are going to work, consistently over and over again. And for the MTIs, for the trainees, for the resources and everything else. Dude, when you talk about creating similar events in every single tech school out there, and you start talking about like what it would take to resource additional training ranges or training that's not AFSC specific for every single tech training student out there, it's an order of magnitude more difficult. And if you're going to resource it, it's way more expensive. So it just gets more complicated as you go along. So that is one of the initiatives that needs to happen is maintaining this type of training. And I'm pretty sure people in the comments are talking about that as well. Like, well, why are we doing it in BMT if we're not going to keep doing it? The entire Air Force is changing, right? Like BMT is creating airmen for the air combat wings. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, I think that might be going away.
Whatever it is, we're trying to create the people that can get stuff done in the worst environment imaginable. That's the goal of the training, not what we used to do or what we have done or what our personal experience is. If things kick off and it goes wild, no matter what it happens, you want people that are going to be able to handle it.
Right. And let me recant my statement, not recant completely, but the DCWs, the deployed combat wings and stuff like that, there are some that exist right now. However, when the new chief of staff came in and the new secretary of the Air Force came in, they said, hey, a lot of those initiatives that were going forward in terms of changing the organizational structure of the Air Force are either going to get paused or reversed. So some of which, because they were going to do away with all groups or all numbered groups. And so, which in some cases makes sense, in other cases does not make sense. Like in our particular case, it does not make sense.
You know who works for the group, folks, obviously. Just kidding. Jared's out here trying to protect his job.
Yeah.
So some groups actually do stuff, guys. Right?
Yeah. So, but to this comment about the resources, you covered that already. What I don't like is saying that the Air Force is doing something that it's never done before. It doesn't necessarily make it a good idea. I would agree with you. However, it also doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. Right?
Yeah.
So, and again, his stuff about, how many airmen will actually, or 95% of the airmen will never do cargo refueling, loading casualties and stuff like that. Again, it goes back to that. Hey, we've got this disconnect from the airmen that are serving and they don't see what's happening. This brings them in more.
Well, and it's so, I know that some of the folks that joined like into GWAT don't necessarily see it. If you don't talk to people, the number of Air Force folks that had to do crazy stuff during GWAT, especially in the beginning, outside of their designated AFSC, like we had transportation people running convoy ops in Iraq, getting shot at and getting Bronze Stars and all the other stuff. And yeah, it's not all of them, but you're still in the military, y'all. And we're going to ask people to do crazy stuff. Like my wife is a personnel officer, and some of the stuff that she had to do in Afghanistan, I was like, holy crap, that's a super sketchy, babe. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, like you raise your right hand, you're in the DOW. So you better be ready for war. And have that mentality to go do stuff. And while, yes, doing something different is that we've never done before is not necessarily a good idea, but also ask yourself, it doesn't seem like a whole bunch of people out there are super psyched about the product that they're getting out of BMT and tech school when it comes to these folks. And honestly, I think the trainees that are going to start graduating BMT and tech training here in the next few years, as far as the culture goes, they're going to start pushing some of those, NCOs that are just negative Nancy's in the right direction culturally to hold their feet to the fire and to, view things a little bit differently.
Yeah. And it's also a lot easier to shit on things that you don't know about or change in it than it is to actually take a step back and go, hey, these people are really, really close to the problem. And they have recognized for years that there is an issue and at least they're trying to get after it. So maybe I'm not saying that it's going to be, the right decision or everything's going to be perfect or anything like that. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Zulu course, right?
Yeah. They almost got so much right, except for that creed.
Yeah, man, you guys really messed up with the creed.
But honestly, if the Ones Ready podcast, is that what we're complaining about? Is the creed? That's our number one complaint about the Zulu course? Like, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. But again, are there going to be hiccups? Are there going to be friction points where you're just like, dude, that was dumb, or why are they doing it like this? It's like, hey, it's the first iteration. Like, and they did it really fast. So the second iteration will be better. There would be some changes, third, and then so on. So, I ran into two maintainers from Alaska in the BX the other day, and they're in town for Red Flag right now, and they were asking questions about the Zulu course, and even they understood. They're like, yeah, well, of course the first time is going to be a little rough, just like the first time that this iteration, once you guys get the pop-up, created and all that kind of stuff, there's going to be hiccups. It's not going to be pretty until a couple iterations through. And then it's like, oh, okay, we changed some things logistically. There was some issues, and timing. There was some issues. So now we've adjusted. It'll get better. Instead, I would prefer this than to let's keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again and continuing to complain about a problem and not changing anything while expecting a different result and complaining about the next generation.
Yeah. And then honestly, most people that complain about the next generation are in position to just fix it. All you NCOs and chiefs out there, just throwing it out there. One of the cool things about this project, though, is how collaborative it is. And when you talk about people that are close to the problem, I talked to some of these MTIs over there that are working on this type of stuff, and they're about to PCS, within the next year. And they're like, dude, I want to come back a year after I PCS, kind of like what you were saying. And I want to see kind of where all this is going, because the MTIs are psyched about this. Like, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of thrash at BMT. There has been for a while now, because you had to break up all the concrete first. And there's a lot of stress going on. But I think in, 18 to 24 months, when you come back, you're going to be like, I can't. And this, I think General Davison says stuff like this, like, where people are going to come back and be like, why did we ever do it another way? It doesn't make any sense. Like, everybody in the Navy is not going to be like on a ship, but they spent like an ungodly amount of money on their boat or whatever ship trainer out there at the Navy BMT. And so for us to spend, 30, 50 million to update our training, to give the airmen, the trainees, an idea of what the Air Force is all about, I think is a really good price to pay for that.
I would actually expect it to be more. So, that's.
Well, we're still spending a lot of money trying to train pilots to fly aircraft. They're going to be, worthless in a few years. So
that comment is like 50 years off, probably.
Yeah, but it's rage bait.
30 at the best. At best case, 30 years. That is definitely rage bait. Man.
Top Gun Maverick, the dude that they're like, your pilots are going to be a thing of the past. That's me. That's my role on the podcast, is to tell pilots that y'all are going away. And I don't actually believe that. I think fewer pilots in the future. We need to start being better about how many do we actually need, and are there other things that we can do? But I'm not a pilot, so I'm kind of talking at my butt on that one.
I think it's going to be, we're still going to need pilots. I think it's going to be, how do we optimize their brain and their physicality to be able to do incredibly long sorties, longer than what they've done before, in a small cockpit, while going from, to and from the fight for long durations where there's not much of a spike in adrenaline and stress, to all of a sudden an hour and a half worth or more of fighting, pulling G's, controlling collaborative combat aircraft, controlling drones while they're fighting. And everybody talks about the AI and stuff like that, but there's still human input that has to happen into that. For those AI, CCAs to actually do stuff. And then if they survive, then they've got to make it back. So we've got to figure out, and we're getting after it now, of how to not fix the brain, but optimize their brain and optimize their physicality to try and improve it, and helping them upregulate and downregulate their body.
Yeah. It's incredibly important. I think what we should do is move to only one-seaters, because that seems like the best way to optimize the amount of brain power that we can put into those things.
Especially for F-15 EXs.
Yeah, only one-seaters.
Yeah. I did get a couple messages on that. It was funny, which were all good. Like somebody had said, all right, God's aircraft's being mentioned. I love it.
Oh, the
Somebody
15s
else.
are incredible. Like,
Oh,
when did those come online in like 75 or earlier?
yes. Yeah.
That's
Well,
that's crazy that the F-15 is still like one of the premier fighter,
yeah,
multi-use aircraft in the world. And my old man was in the Air Force when the F-15s first showed up.
yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, the F-15EX is the newest variant of that. I think the F-15E is right before that, and then the F-15C model was a single-seater F-15, which was strictly air-to-air, air dominance type thing, whereas an F-15E is definitely multi-role. Like, I don't think there's any question on how multi-role that thing is.
Listen up, Air Force. I got an idea, and you're going to love it. The next version of the F-15 is the F-15 FAFO. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, that's easy right there.
It's already got an F in it. It's after E, right? Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a natural progression.
just take advantage of the culture,
Yeah, so just to back you up on that. So the first variant was the F-15A. That was in 72 as a single seater. And
Jeez.
then 73 was the F-15B, which was a two-seater trainer. And then, but it became operational, like the F-15A became operational in 76. Man.
Dang. Yeah.
And then F-15E, as it currently is, was 1988.
Good.
Think about that, though. That is incredible. And then the first deliveries of the F-15EX were in 21. So, but it's still being fielded, and it was supposed to be in 21. I'm sure one got delivered at that point, but they're kind of behind schedule right now, or maybe they've caught up now. But yeah,
but that is crazy. That when they built that aircraft, it's just like, do you think? I mean, it can do it all. It's insane,
dude. It can carry so much munitions, so much.
Yeah, that's why they're so not loud when they take off. They're not very loud at all. They're nice, quiet.
They're stealth without being stealth.
Of course. What's crazy is how big they are. Like I think as a kid, like you see it, you have like your little model planes, and your F-16 and your F-15 are like the same size models. It's like, no, this thing is a large bird.
Yes, very large bird. That I don't know what. So I like to call the F-16 the blue collar fighter, but I also tend to think that the F-15E is also kind of a blue collar fighter because it does a bit of everything. And I don't know if the pilots and the Wizzos in that community would agree, but there you go.
During GWAT, right? If an F-16 checks on, it's a different thing than if an F-15 checks on. Just capabilities, what they're able to do.
Playtime.
Yeah, it's not an A-10, right? But the F-16, it's like he's there, he's gone. They're a lot of fun. They're lawn darts. It's a crazy little plane. But the F-15 is like what they can bring to the fight. From the ground perspective, it was a lot more.
Yeah, definitely different capabilities. What's kind of wild about, at least, so an F-16, it's four-sighted, right? The rifle is four-sighted. So what they point at is what they hit. At F-15, now see, here's where I'm going to mess it up, and this is embarrassing. An F-15E and an F-15C has a 3-degree cant on the rifle. So meaning that if they're going to straight to ground, they actually have to be pointed nose over a bit more just to get the gut. Yeah. So 3 degrees more, which doesn't sound like very much, but probably when you're pointing at the ground, going 500 miles an hour, probably seems a bit much.
Little pucker factor there. I'm sure the first time you ever do that, it's like, are you sure? And your trainer's like, yeah, bro.
You want me to just tip this thing over more, huh?
Okay. More. Well, you know how that's probably how it goes. Nope, got to do it more.
Man.
I don't want to.
I don't
The
want
ground is right there, bro. But
crazy.
cool.
Now, hopefully, I got that right. I know it is for the F-15C. I'm pretty sure it is for the E as well.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it's fun to talk about all this stuff too. Bring it back to BMT a little bit. It's like we complained for a long time that the Air Force is not moving forward, and honestly, to that person's thing, it's like, well, just because it's something we've never done before doesn't mean it's a good thing. I think it's good to have like some leadership and some folks in charge that are like pushing for more capability. If you're not pushing for more capability, if you're not getting out, if they're not going out there and getting the resources and identifying what's happening and they're not listening to like the part of the force that actually does stuff, it's been stagnant for too long. So like I like the feeling of momentum, and maybe that's just because of where we came from, but I think moving in the direction of the future, not just talking about it, which is what it felt like it was for a long time. A lot of platitudes about MCAs and ACE and AF4Gen and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of thrash, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of movement. I think it feels good to have some movement behind it, at the basic training level.
Yeah, and again, if you want things to progress and get better, that you've got to do some things, and people are going to disagree with it. It's going to cost you some money. It's going to cost you some investment. It's going to cost you some headache because some things aren't going to go right because of unforeseen circumstances or something like that, or fiscal constraints, resource constraints, whatever. Or you get somebody who's maliciously complying or something like that. Or it was just, hey man, we didn't think about that. Or you can just keep doing the same exact thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's been like that for too long. So I'm psyched about it. Obviously, I'm biased when it comes to some of the stuff that's happening. But dude, I think it's like when the folks that are still active duty say that they're excited about it, that just gets me more excited about it. And I think there's no better marker than to have like your E5s and E6s being like, no, this is going to be rad. Because that's really the heart. The soul of the Air Force is that the first two NCOs. Your staffs and your techs, and if you're doing right by them, I don't think you can do that much wrong.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So I'm excited to see what happens with it.
Yeah, so stay tuned for more updates on the BMT stuff. No, I mean I think it's just good for us to put it out there. Like, the Airman NCO page, they're always first, but we're always right. So there you go.
So suck it. But
we're just as bad as everybody because they just post stuff and it's just the comments. It's not actually the people on the page most of the time, but it's funny.
Oh man, the place is a dumpster fire, and I think it's meant to be that way because you're just dropping stuff and just letting people freaking, you got a bunch of starving people and you're just throwing out freaking food and just letting them fight,
Scraps.
So, but
we already have that on Chapman with the Security Forces Schoolhouse. We already have F-16s over there. All the stuff. It's like, cool.
Yeah, awesome. I saw one comment on here. It's like, I wonder how many airmen's heads are going to get gashed from walking into a wing or an aileron or something like that. And then
probably not zero.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be zero, but that doesn't mean that we're going to change anything. It's like, hey, don't be a dumbass.
You mean you're in the military and you're accepting a little bit of risk by doing some of the stuff that we're doing? It's wild.
No, absolutely not.
Have you ever hit your head on anything? I'm curious.
No. Nope, and I've never lost consciousness either.
That's true. Little situational awareness, never consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a little DNF joke for y'all out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Just so you know, you've never lost consciousness. It's not that I would ever advise you to do that or lie or anything like that. But I have never lost consciousness. You understand me?
Speaking of not losing consciousness, last thing, did you see the fights last night?
I did not, no.
Bro, Justin Gaethje, making a real strong argument for my favorite fighter of all time. If you didn't watch the fights, you got to go back and watch them. Like,
did he watch? Is he the one that fought Patty the Batty?
Yeah, yeah. And I like Patty. I love Patty.
Yeah, I like
It's
Patty.
nice to see the older guy. You know, I'm an older guy, so it's nice to see the guy that's a little bit of a legend, you know, take the fight. And Patty took some punishment. I mean, they both did, but like Patty's face afterwards, it was like, bro, how did you not? How did that fight go 5 rounds? It was insane. It was one of the few, you know, like every once in a while there's like a 5-round fight where you're like, okay, this is one of the ones where it's like it went 5 rounds and it's like worth it, worth every second staying awake.
Cool. Man. Is he? Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Patty's face. Oh, is he? Is what's his name? Gareth? Is he a
Gaethje.
bit older? Or Gaethje? Is
He's
he
like
a bit older?
37.
Okay, so he's probably definitely quite a bit older than Patty.
Yeah, I think Patty's 31, maybe 28, 31, something like that. I want Patty to get the belt at some point. I think Patty's a fantastic fighter. He's awesome. But man, Gaethje's the interim champ. He gets another shot at the full up title one more time at least. So, and then his strategy in that fight, his interview afterwards is just like, my coach was pretty pissed at me after the first round because I went in there and just tried to kill the dude. You know, he's like, I just get so excited. You know, he's so enthusiastic about it. He's like, I just love this sport so much. And he's like thanking his parents and everything. I was just like, yeah, I like that dude.
That's awesome. Head over to operatortrainingsummit.com. Get registered for our next event, which is University of Alabama. We're going to be using the facilities there, which is going to be epic. Can't wait. It's going to be phenomenal. But until then, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you later. See you.
Later.